Have you ever stared at the photos you've taken and wonder, why don't they look like the art I've got in my head? Well, today I'm going to walk you through how I developed my own cinematic dark and moody style and how you can develop your own style as well. I'm James from Who Shot the Photographer, and I capture couples all across the world, from Australia to New Zealand, Japan and Europe. So finding your visual voice rarely happens just overnight like that. Over this video, I'm going to share with you what really helped develop my creative skills, what inspired me, and how I kind of ultimately came to find what I really enjoy. So I actually had a past client, Charlie, reach out and actually ask me about how I'd learned to develop my style. I know Charlie is developing their own photography at the moment, and yeah, again, I guess they just really wanted insight into how things work. So this is what really spurred me on to do this video. So I'm gonna generalize here, and I might upset a few people, but look, I'm just gonna give you my ideas, my creative process behind everything here. So typically when it comes to photography, you've got two kind of main schools, I guess, of editing style. You've got your light and airy, so this is where typically you'll get kind of overexposed skies, everything will look very soft, very kind of pastel colored, and it might look a lot lighter basically. So this is your kind of classic bright and airy look. Now on the other end, you've got dark and moody. Now I don't quite know where dark and moody came from, but the idea of it is basically you typically underexpose the image. So with bright and airy, it's typically overexposing it. With dark and moody, it's underexposing it as well. So this is where typically you'll have a much darker scene, but you will retain kind of the saturation and the color in the sky, for example, and then you'll draw the viewer's eye to kind of one bright point in the image. It's really a storytelling device. Now, to cut to the chase, I definitely swing more on the dark and moodier side. And the reason is because I really enjoy having that kind of storytelling device of actually pointing people's eyes towards something. You'll see it, to be fair, in a lot of movies. A lot of movies, I would say, use both elements, but typically dark and moody is used, and when it is, these scenes really stand out to me. So going right back to kind of, I guess, where this all started for me, I guess really when I was younger, my dad used to have a lot of art books. So he was really interested in stuff like Rembrandt, Caravaggio, all of the Dutch masters. The kind of Dutch masters are my major influence, I think. The thing is, when you look at their paintings and how they used to paint stuff, really all they were doing was painting light. So you'd see these beautiful kind of dark and moody rooms with this kind of character just lit up with the light in the window. It's just so, it feels so visceral. And I feel like it feels how we see the world as well, especially when you do get a really nice scene you walk into. So a lot of these books when I was younger, they kind of were a little bit edgy, I guess. They kind of went into a bit of mythology. So like hell, depictions of hell, for example, you know, really dark and moody kind of sinister things. But the light of it really caught me. And I guess even this scene, how I'm lit now and everything is very much like my kind of style. You know, everything is quite dark in the background. I'm here as well as kind of the lit figure. It's yet again really isolating me in the scene. And I'm a massive cinemaphile. So typically I will be watching so many awesome movies and so many of them stick it in my mind. For example, Christopher Nolan, you know, you've got films like 1917 as well, Blade Runner, all these really amazing classics as well, even Dune as well. I mean, yeah, again, these are very modern films, but there's so many which are so evocative and use light in such a dark and contrasty, moody way that really have always caught my eye. Contrast is yet again one of the biggest things I think in photography. You know, it's why we've got black and white. It's why we like seeing red against green. And I think that the dark and moody style really lends it to that. You do really get this intense contrast between stuff. And I think it's just such an exciting thing to look at and view. So talking about the science of it, I guess, with humans, we are naturally drawn to the brightest part of a scene. You can look at any photo or any piece of painting and artwork and you'll see that the lightest part is what we are naturally drawn to. So this is why I really like dark and moody and why it kind of really plays into my preferred method of storytelling. Now, what I do with underexposing the image typically is I want to set a kind of neutral base, so then I can use, for example, maybe a radial filter in Lightroom, or preferably really an actual light source on the day to illuminate the person. So for example, putting someone in front of a window with everything backlit, it just looks amazing. Yet again, I guess right how I am now with my light on me, it's kind of standing me out from the background. One of the other things I remember going through this process, and I did try light and airy for a little bit, but the thing which really annoyed me was the fact that the light the sky would be blown out all the time. And for me, this is such a small thing, but my favorite color is blue. And I would get really frustrated that I couldn't see blue in the sky. And I thought, oh, this is so frustrating. I want to see this. And the hard thing was, yet again, when learning portrait photography as well, working in harsh daylight sun, you don't really know what to do. And of course you want to see the skin tones of people, but then the problem is, you know, if you're gonna basically then get the right skin tones, you're gonna blow out the sky. And this is where I got really confused, and this is where I went down this massive drill on understanding what dark and moody was. So I think to get a really good understanding, I guess, of how I actually worked with this and countered this whole idea is understanding dynamic range. So dynamic range, if you don't know, is basically the difference between the lightest part of an image and the darkest part. Now, the human eye, we can actually see about 24 stops of light. So we do get to see everything. This is why when you're out with your iPhone taking a photo, you might think, oh, why is it a bit blown out here? And nowadays they're pretty good because you do get HDR in it, and high dynamic range does kind of elevate that. But typically, you know, I'm sure it's happened to you before if you're a photographer or if you enjoy it. If you're using a DSLR, you will notice I have to make a choice. I either have to underexpose something or I'm going to blow out the sky. And this is the problem I had. And this is where I went in to delve more into this. So typically cameras, like I have a Canon R5, this typically has about 12 stops of dynamic range in it. So half of what we have as the human eye. If you're using analog film, this is about 14 to 16 stops typically. But look, let's just assume for the sake of argument, we're all using digital SLRs or mirrorless lenses, and these are about 12 stops. So because of this, because of the 12 stops, we have to make a choice. This means that we can either have some stuff blown out or we're gonna have stuff too dark. Now, this is where the creative element comes into it, and this is why this is a little bit of a contentious subject sometimes. You have to make a choice as a photographer what you're going to do. And this is where, for me, I thought I really want to keep this sky. I really wanted to keep it, and that was the first thing I did. And then when I started playing around with it more, and I started going to more art galleries, watching more cinema, really trying to, even getting books and trying to look at them and really trying to see how light used to be painted by people like Rembrandt and Caravaggio and all these fantastic artists. It really made me dive into this idea of underexposing the scene a bit more, and then painting in the light using lights or windows and everything like that. And whilst I was exploring all this stuff, I was using Lightroom as well. Now, most photographers use Lightroom, and in this, when I first got it, I was just getting preset after preset, really trying to play with things, trying sliders out. I didn't really know what half of them did, to be honest. I just kind of got a preset. I think it was like Tribe Archipelago or something like that. And I used that for a bit. It was pretty good, but it got to a point where I really wasn't understanding what I was creating. And as I went through things more and more, this is where I really started to realize that I was drawn to this dark and moodier style. So first thing is I would always try and shoot underexposed. So this would get me the base of my dark and moody look. This would mean that, yeah, the sky was still intact. Sure, the people were a little bit darker as well, but the thing is I could always lighten that up in Brightroom by upping the exposure, but then reducing the highlights a little bit as well and bumping the shadows up. So the good thing is you can kind of artificially fake the dynamic range a lot of the time in Lightroom, which kind of gets over that gap of not having 24 stops of dynamic range. And the thing is, with using Lightroom, this was over years. And even now, I'm still learning a little bit here and there, but this whole change happens over years. And I think it's why it's really worth, if anyone is really serious about this, do definitely take a class in it. There's great YouTube videos, there's great courses everywhere. I'm not sponsored by anyone. I'm not going to be doing a giveaway or anything like that, but there's so many that you can learn from. And it's absolutely worth just playing around with things and understanding how things work. So things really changed for me about 3 or 4 years ago when I really started to play around with video. So this is like motion, actual motion video. And it's something I really enjoy. But with this, you use something called log footage. Now, log footage it looks really weird. It basically looks super flat and super uncontrasty. And then what you do is you put it into video editing software and you kind of apply what is called I think it's a LUT basically, which kind of converts it according to your camera's color space. I'm completely ad-libbing that. I probably have that a little bit wrong, but that's the idea. And if you have a phone like an iPhone, I think 15 14 or 15 above, you will actually be able to shoot log footage, and you'll see it being very flat, and you can even do it on your camera as well. Now, at first I was like, I don't really get the big deal of this, and then I got into video editing, especially using something called DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve, I feel like, is one of kind of the key standards of what a lot of video editors use, even in big Hollywood productions as well. And for me, what struck me is it really put me through the paces in learning color grading. Color grading is a really massive part of what I do, and it's really about understanding how you want the image and the scene to feel. You can go online and look up little kind of scene grabs from films, like one of the most classic, I guess, is Joker, but then you've also got Dune as well, where things look really orange. And I went through this time where I really tried to understand how it was crafted, how it was created, and also trying to learn a balance. I'm sure you've had this when you go in Lightroom and you turn up the HDR slider to maximum and you go full bore with it. And that's totally valid, that's totally fine. But then you get to a point where you kind of crank things back and you learn about it, and it makes a big difference in not going all the way. And this is how I learned to edit with color grading. It really was going to the maximum and then bringing it back. And this is where I get a lot of my style from now, really trying to think about stuff. So for example, if it's a hot day, if it's a cold day, what I want the colors to look like, what the highlights are going to be like, what the shadows, and it all comes down to color theory as well. And yeah, again, color theory is such a massive thing. I highly recommend looking up on YouTube because it is just a fantastic thing. It's far too big for me to go in this video. But yeah, again, as I say, understanding these things was core to me developing my own style as well at the moment. And yeah, again, to get these ideas, you can't pour all of this creative energy into an empty cup. You do need to make sure that you have influence and you have stuff that really inspires you. So for me, art galleries. I love, obviously, cinema, film, even anime. I'm a massive anime nerd, and so many incredible anime movies are just absolutely beautiful to look at. One of my favorites is Ghost in the Shell, the 1995 version. Is fantastic. There's even this 2-minute scene where it's just about world building, and it doesn't add anything to the story. It's just incredible. But the way in which the colors work and they match and everything like that, it really inspires me. And I really encourage you to do the same thing. Go to art galleries, enjoy cinema, really get influenced by all this stuff. And you might be drawn to different styles than I am. And totally, I don't want everyone watching this video to think, oh great, I've got to go and do this style, this is the right one. Absolutely not. I was really drawn to dark and moody, as I say, because of my very kind of early influences and what I really enjoy, but I absolutely don't think it's for everyone as well. And I really encourage people watching movies they might feel a bit uncomfortable with. For example, a really good film is Robert Eggers' The Lighthouse. Now, this has got Willem Dafoe in it and Robert Pattinson, and it's all shot on, I think it was like Kodak Tri-X, I think, a black and white Kodak film, but it's just amazing, and it's a really weird film, and I love it. So I really encourage you as well, do watch films which challenge you, and you might be surprised at some of the aesthetic kind of things you really enjoy in that and want to bring into your own work. Now, another thing I really encourage people to do is to put constraints on what you do and how you do it. This is why I went through a massive phase where I shot film. I shot film so much, so, you know, I have a fridge basically full of film at the moment still. I have all these old film cameras, they're absolutely amazing, but because of that, I really put the constraint on myself, and I said, right, I'm gonna shoot like 50 rolls of film with this. This was back when it wasn't too expensive. It's a little bit more dear now, but typically with this, it's really good because then you do only get, for example, 36 shots in a film. You can't just go and just spray and pray. You really have to take your time with it, especially if you shoot medium format, because you can only get about 10 shots in a whole roll, and that could mean that, you know, with $25 of the cost of the film, $25 to get it processed, each shot could cost you a cup of coffee. So you've really got to sit and think about what you're doing. And constraints like that are really good for your creative process as well. Even doing something simple like going out and saying, I'm going to shoot with a 50mm prime lens at f1.8, for example. Something like that, it's just a good thing to do that in terms of developing your creativity. It's good to grow like that. You will grow in ways you don't even expect, and this is what I did a lot of as well, and it really helped me just see the world differently, rather than just kind of having all this flexibility. So another really hard thing I discovered whilst I was learning was the trap of fads, to put it nicely. Now, every year, every decade, there's going to be a new fad. When I started, it was very much the tribe archipelago look, so very desaturated stuff as well, which is totally valid now, and I still see a lot of photographers who do that, and that's fantastic. That's really good. I know at the moment there's this kind of really earthy brown vintage look, which I think is just, yet again, really, really beautiful. But certainly one of the big problems I had when I started was trying to find a creative style that really works for me. And I remember switching, it was nearly every year, to a different style. I would keep leapfrogging. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I've changed my style about 3 years ago. I changed my style quite heavily after I started learning video. But it's certainly something to be aware of. I think it's why it's really important to take the time to understand where your influences come from. You know, for me, as I say, the Dutch masters, hands down, are my big influence. However, I know other photographers who are really influenced by Andy Warhol, bright 60s colors and stuff like that. There's so many different artists out there to be inspired by, and it's fantastic. For example, I know Wes Anderson is a major influence in so many people now, and it's great, you know, that we've got these different colors and this kind of very square on format as well, which I am a big fan of, and I will incorporate into my work as well. But I think being aware of these things ultimately is going to help you get more out of what you're doing, rather than just saying, oh, well, the new fad is this tribe archipelago preset, I should just use this all the time, it's going to make all my photos great. This was another really harsh wake-up call for me when I realized that, you know, getting a nice preset where, being real, you know, they sell it, they have a lot of attractive models there, which they use to sell it. It looks like you'll apply that one preset to your image and everything's gonna look amazing. It doesn't, unfortunately. I hate to say it. It's kind of like saying, what's the best camera? I've sometimes had people ask that and say, hey, what's the best camera? What one is the best? Honestly, it's the one you're going to use. You know, the Hasselblad, which costs $10,000 versus, you know, a Canon 5D Mark III that might be worth, you know, $200 nowadays. They're going to take great photos. It depends on what you're taking photos of. So I'm going to give you 3 practical steps now to help you kind of really nail this down and kind of, I don't know, help guide you a little bit with this process as well. So the first thing I would really recommend is try to master your editing software. Now, yes, this does mean do spend some time going down the rabbit hole, learning how all the sliders work, all these different things, because ultimately it's going to help you create your own preset that's really going to resonate with you. The second step is look at some images that really get your heart racing. So stuff you really love the look of, or you really enjoy. Yeah, again, these could be influences from movies, artwork, anything that you really love, and just keep a set of them in a folder. You know, it could be like 50 images, 50 pieces of art, and really look at it and really try and think what it is about that you really like. The difference between painting and photography really isn't much sometimes. Obviously, more abstract stuff is a little bit harder, but certainly it's why I'm drawn to the Dutch masters, because most of the time they painted what was there, apart from all the weird demon stuff, but still. So then what I would then do is try to actually develop a preset that works for you to try and emulate the style that you're really into. What I would then do is actually go into lots of different environments and just keep shooting all of these example test images that then you can try and apply your preset to. This is really key, because the bottom line is your preset is not going to work in every single scenario, and you need to get used to using stuff like understanding white balance, understanding which color grade works best. You can have a base set of configurations that work in your Lightroom preset, but you do need to be able to understand how to adapt it to different scenarios. And the good thing is you probably don't have to do too much. For me, for example, most of the work I do is I do light painting with kind of a tablet and pen sometimes, or already your filters, but then what I'll do is I'll adjust the white balance. I might adjust some sliders here and there, but the main ones really are the exposure and the color grade. Everything else, it kind of stays the same. And the bottom line is you've just got to keep doing this until you feel like you're getting work that you look at and you feel consistently great with. The bottom line is, and this is a bit of a harsh truth, you're never going to be happy with your work to a point. There's a really good book I recommend called Art and Fear. I think every photographer should read it. The too long didn't read of it basically is that you're never going to be comfortable with your artwork, or rather you shouldn't be, because that's how we grow. It's an uncomfortable truth, but it's still the truth, unfortunately. However, a really big bit of advice is don't let yourself burn out. I certainly know that when I started doing photography, I was out every weekend doing shoots, doing model shoots, and it was really good, but my gosh, I remember I burnt out so hard because I actually used to do a lot of Photoshop in my work, and it really burnt me out, and I actually put down the camera for 6 months because I was so exhausted. This is where then I came back to the drawing board I really started to develop my own preset, and things went a lot better after that. And be kind to yourself as well. Rome wasn't built in a day, and certainly talking from the perspective as a photographer who's now been doing this full time for about 8 years, it does take time. It does take time to do this stuff. I certainly wouldn't have been looking back at my stuff about 8 years ago thinking I would be where I am today. But at the moment, I'm really, really happy with what I'm creating. I think it's really, really beautiful, and I've gotten there just because of this really hard grind I've done. It has taken years. It will take you years, but I promise if you work at it slowly, you will get there. And another thing as well, if you're watching this and you only have an iPhone as a camera, don't stress. I think iPhone cameras today are absolutely brilliant. I've actually done a set of photos before with it, and I posted it on my personal Instagram as well when I was going around Sydney taking photos with it. I think at the end of the day, yeah, again, like I've mentioned before, it's not about the gear. It's really about your creative vision. And I really do genuinely believe the best investment you can put in for yourself is education when it comes to Lightroom, but also when it comes to your artistic vision. So this means do go and buy some books that you really like. Go to the library, look at some art galleries, do all this stuff to really consume as much art as you can, and you'll walk away with it getting a really good vision of what you're drawn to. And it's not about copying everyone else's work, but it's certainly about being a little bit influenced by and then taking your own magic and combining everything together. Style is the intersection of influence, experimentation, and ruthless self-critique. I'd love to hear in the comments what you're struggling with or what's holding you back creatively from achieving your style, actually doing what you want to with your photography. And if this really inspired you, please feel free to subscribe and like the video as well. I really love putting out videos to try and help other photographers and also educate clients as well in eloping, weddings, and how to create art in general. And if you found this useful and you would love to follow more of my work, I'm on Instagram at @whoshotthephotographer. This is where I share a lot of my work, a lot of insights into how I create images as well, and what really inspires me. Anyway, guys, I hope you found this video. Any questions, let me know down below, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.